If any organization wants their teams to go out and deliver a successful brand message, it really needs to start from within. The journey of a world-class brand or campaign relies on the growth of your internal teams. And here to explore his 4 strategies to grow a branded culture is best-selling author and CEO of the Brand Theatre, Dr. Jerome Joseph. Hello, Jerome.
Hi, how are you doing?
Really well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. It's midnight in Singapore, so
I was going
I'm
to
excited.
say.
All caught up.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's so late for you. We appreciate you staying up so you can come on and tell us all of your insights and wisdom about the journey that you've had so far with brands. So, as you know, Jerome, you have a presentation prepared, which you'll go over, but after 20 minutes, we'll come back to the floor and I will do our live audience Q&A. So in the meantime, I will leave the audience in your extremely capable hands and I will see you here shortly.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good evening, whichever part of the world you're in. My name is Jerome Joseph from Singapore. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be speaking to all of you today. And it's based off a book that I wrote almost 6 years ago. And I remember going into organizations and telling organizations, you need to brand from within. And now I own a brand consulting company. And when I go in, there is a big obsession with, I need to brand externally, right? I need campaigns. Inside the organization, are you nuts? I'm not going to spend money there. But we realized over the years, and my own doctorate has been in this topic, that is so crucial for organizations. Now, I've been doing this for a long time. I've written 8 books. I have traveled the world. I've worked and spoken in 34 countries. And I've been now doing this for 23 years. And I'm excited. And I would, what you would say, obsessed when it comes to branding. I love everything about branding, especially if it's built and grown from within. So much so that I wanted to immerse myself with some of the best brands in the world. Disney was one of those examples. And I attended Disney University. Did you know there's actually a university, Disney University? You would know. So I went to Disney University and I learned a lot about what makes the brand tick. And a big part of it was internal branding. And there's a story that was shared to me that I'm going to share with all of you. So the story was about a young executive called Thomas who had just joined Disney in customer service, first week in a job, and he had a problem. You see, a little boy called Mark had lost his teddy bear. And Thomas frantically went around looking for the bear because the boy's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Hill, were looking high and low, right, to get this teddy bear back to their son, Mark. Now, Thomas found that bear, decides to send an email to the boy's parents, which went something like this. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Hill, I found your son's teddy bear. Kindly collect this from reception. Sincerely yours, Thomas, Customer Service, Disney. Just as he's about to press the send button, a senior executive of Disney walks over, looks over Thomas's shoulder, goes, Thomas, stop. This is not the Disney brand. Let me show you how it's done. The senior executive proceeds to take a piece of paper and a crayon and proceeds to handwrite. And the note went something like this. Dearest Mark, addressed to the little boy, we miss you. Hi, this is Mickey Mouse. We have been playing with Teddy and we want you to come and bring him home and play with us. See you soon. Lots of love. Signed, Mickey Mouse. P.S. Goofy says hello. He proceeds to fold this, sends it to a little boy. I love telling this story, and I've been telling this story in multiple conferences where I speak at. And I always ask the audience, what is the moral of the story? Well, the moral of the story is really very simple. The moral of the story is that every gesture counts within your organization. Michael Eisner, the former CEO of Disney, says this. He says, a brand is a living entity, and it is enriched or undermined over a period of time, the product of 1,000 gestures. And that's what I'm here to talk to all of you about. Every single gesture in your organization counts. In a perfect organization, all of you would be like this shoal of fish swimming in the same direction. Every single employee aligned to the brand messages, moving in the same direction. Having been doing this now for 23 plus years, I realized that there are challenges. There are challenges for organizations to build their brand from within. So in the chat box, if you could, and I would love for you to type it down. What do you think are some of the challenges that this organization face when it comes from building and growing their brand from within? Type it in the chat box, please. Oh, when I did my doctorate, I went around and I worked and I interviewed 400 organizations all around the world. And I had a whole bunch of challenges. And today, in the interest of time, I'm going to focus on 4. So what are some of the common challenges? Number 1 would be clarity. It would be the fact that today, many employees, they don't know what the brand stands for. They're not sure of it. Now, if you want your customers to know your brand, it has to start with your employees knowing about your brand first. So number 1 is clarity. Number 2 is connection. So they know the brand, but there is a lack of belief. And again, I've gone in and seen this in my data. Yes, I know the brand, but I don't feel it. I don't believe in it. As such, they're unable to deliver it. Third thing is consistency. Yes, I believe in the brand, but I'm only going to believe in it on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. But Tuesday and Thursday, it's something else. So there is a lack of consistency when it comes to brand building within an organization. The lack of consistency in the delivery of the brand by the employees. And finally, is employees who champion the brand. And many organizations, I go, who are your champions? And no one's able to give me an answer. Who are the champions in your organization? How are they participating? How are they advocating? How are they defending your brand? So today I'm going to take you through 4 key principles very quickly. I have an entire book around it, and I could go on speaking about this in days, but I'm going to give you 4 things to start thinking about when it comes to building your brand from within. The first thing, of course, is clarity. Knowing your brand. It is so crucial that every employee in your organization knows your brand. Now, I travel a lot, and I travel quite a fair bit. And I remember going into a country and going and reaching customs or immigration and seeing this brand marketing message everywhere. Service with a smile. From the time I left the aircraft and walked all the way to the immigration booth, I kept seeing this sign, this marketing message, service with a smile. Until I reached the person, the passport controller, the customs officer. He had a badge that said service with a smile too. But here's the problem. Nobody was smiling. No one was smiling, and that's a problem. Now, here is a brand message that's being put out there, but employees who don't know it or are unable to deliver it. Now, so my first tip for all of you is this, right? I mean, if you have a brand and you have a brand, ensure that everyone knows it. Make sure it's relevant to the people. So here are 2 quick tips for you to start thinking about. Number 1, I want you to start thinking about talking to employees and making sure that what you create from a brand standpoint is relevant to them. Number 2, I really want you to make sure that you get everyone to understand the brand and make sure they know it. So that brings me to point number 2, connection, belief. Now, I come from Asia, and I've lived in Asia most of my life. And this gentleman, he kind of looks a little bit like me, but he's not me. He kind of looks like me from 20 years from now. He's Tony Fernandes. He's the CEO of one of the biggest budget airlines in Asia called AirAsia. And I had a chance to work with them and meet Tony Fernandes many years ago. One of the things that I realized is really powerful about Tony Fernandes and AirAsia is that the stories and the belief that they create within their organization. So for example, I remember when Tony was showing me around, he came up and he was showing me a wall. And on the wall, he was telling me a story about one of his baggage handlers. And he goes, this baggage handler came to me and said, I want to be a pilot. And Tony Fernandes said, in AirAsia, we make dreams come true. And today that baggage handler is a captain. of one of my aircrafts. And there were many such pictures and many such stories. So it is so crucial then for us to start thinking about how do we create connection and belief in our organization. There are many ways for you to do that. And then I'm going to give you quickly some of these quick ways of doing it. Number one, of course, is reward and recognition. It's really powerful. Tony Fernandez is a master at this. It is through stories, symbols, and rituals. You could do this also by performance review, not just a brand, on-brand performance review. Has an employee delivered on the brand? You could also do this, for example, through looking at, for example, your guidelines and creating guidelines, or looking at creating a nice communication campaign or training programs. So there are many ways that you can look at creating and engaging employees and creating belief in them. Now let's look at one of the case studies that I have for you today. And this is one of my big clients, right? This is Master Builder Solutions, which is a company, which is a construction chemical division of BASF, which is a global entity. And I got into work with them, and I got the chance to work with them all around the world. And again, that's one of the things that we had to do for them. We created a whole series of training materials, guidelines. We even had this really cool book called Chemistry for the Soul, which is stories that employees could take and use to deliver to their customers, right? And they could use it in the language that they have in the meetings. So these were some of the tools that we created for them. So these are my 2 key points for all of you to consider. Number 1 is please find ways and opportunities to start using these tools for your brand and develop them. And be strategic in how you use them. It's like an internal marketing campaign in your organization. Use a mixture of these tools to drive connection and belief. Let's look at the next one. Consistency. Now, this remains one of the biggest problems, and the data that I found doing my research in this topic points to this. It says organizations typically do a really good job in defining their brand and kind of telling their employees about it, but it is not consistent. And a big part of growing your brand from within is about consistency. This is a brand that I worked with in Asia, and it's a brand that you find in the US as well, Ritz-Carlton. Now, this is what is happening. So this is me at a Ritz-Carlton lineup. Now, every single day, if you are an employee of Ritz-Carlton property in any part of the world, before you start work, you get together in this thing called a lineup. And what do you do in a lineup? You share stories about the brand. You talk about how you have delivered the values of the brand. It is so powerful. And I've had a chance to work with them and witness firsthand the impact of the lineup. And when I work with organizations, I introduce this as a concept. So it doesn't even have to be an everyday affair. It could be a twice a week huddle where you sit down with your team and you talk about how do we drive the brand? How have we delivered on the brand to our customers and to each other? So one of the things that is really important is for consistency to happen, there needs to be reminders. But there's also a need to have a reach. It's not just confined to just the leadership team or the sales team. It has to be across all your departments. It also has to be across all your offices all around the world. And that's what I've been doing. I've been traveling around the world, going into organizations and rolling this out. Again, this is crucial, right? If the way the brand is in Asia has to be the same way the brand is in North America. There needs to be this consistency. So here we have 2 key principles for you to think about, right? So number 1 is to make sure that you continuously drive the brand, and not just drive it, but making sure that the behaviors, right, is recognized, that the behaviors are spoken about, right, in the delivery of the brand consistently. And number 2, to always keep reaching out and driving it and repeating it over and over again. So we talked about 3 key principles: clarity, connection, and consistency. Now let me come to my 4th and final C, which is champion. How can you advocate and participate? Now, one of the things that I do when I go into organizations is I help them create these champions. And I do that in the form of training, creating programs around how to develop champions. So in some organizations, you can do it at a tiered level, You could have an elite group of champions that you use as a catalyst to drive the brand from within, or you could also create champions out of everyone. So the key thing around being a champion is that there is someone you employ as an employee who's willing to step up, stand there and defend the brand, to advocate the brand, to participate in the brand. And this is so crucial because it is so important that you get your people all around the world in all your offices to really show that they believe in the brand. And that acts as a powerful influence for other people in your organization. Now, besides this, there are other things that you can do. You can also look at getting your employees to go out there and put out content. Now, one of the things that really disappoints me sometimes with organizations that I go and I work with is strict social media guidelines. You can't do any of these things. You can't do any of the things. You can't post. Facebook is banned. LinkedIn is banned. We live in a changing world. In this day and age, it is so crucial for us to empower our people to go out there and deliver powerful branded content. People buy from people. People buy from people. And the ability for an employee to go out there and create branded content and share this across public channels, external channels, share this inside your own organization is so crucial. Again, one of the things that I do in organizations is we go in and we train these champions. We teach them how to create this branded content. You need to have some level of guidelines, and we get that in a social setting. But with the right training, they are now able to put out great content and get it to be shared, get it to go viral. And not just that, also getting other employees in the organization, not just to share, but create branded content, but also share content within the organization. So again, there are two things that I want you to consider when it comes to this. Number one is please get your people trained to be a brand champion. Don't make the mistake of going into, I've seen this happen, right? Senior director comes in and goes, we all need to be a brand champion. You champion the brand, and an employee has no idea what to do. Being a brand champion means there needs to be some structure. There needs to be a complete training that goes to it, guidelines that helps your employees be able to be the best versions of themselves to go out there and champion the brand. So number one is doing that. Number two is please empower them. Make them feel like they can make a difference for your brand. So today I shared with you 4 key principles, right? Number one is clarity, is to make sure that everyone in your organization is absolutely clear about your brand. Number two, I talked about connection, which is making everyone sure that they believe in the brand, that they feel connected to the brand. Number 3, I talked to you about consistency, ensuring that it is delivered consistently all the time across all your key touch points. And finally, I talk about the need to create champions in your organization, the need for champions to advocate and to participate in brand building for you. If you would like to find out more, I'm going to give this away. Thank you for listening. This is a copy of my ebook and some of the principles that I've talked about. Feel free to come in here, and it's Jerome Joseph/contact. So you can go to my website, www.jeromejoseph, click the contact button, and just put in your name, email, and I will send this copy of the book to you. And of course, if you would like to ask me more questions about this program, about internal branding and I'm happy to be connected on LinkedIn. You can email me at jerome@jeromejoseph.com. Thank you for your time today. I'm excited to meet and engage with all of you. My name is Jerome Joseph from Singapore. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Jerome. That's brilliant. I cannot believe how much energy you have at midnight. That's quite incredible. So the 4 pillars: clarity, connection, consistency, champion. I have a couple of questions for you based on what you just talked through. My first one, what do you think a marketing leader should do if their internal teams just aren't getting behind the messaging? What needs to change? Is it the teams? Is it the messaging? Is it a bit of both?
I've seen this happen very often. In fact, it's interesting, right? I just saw it happening yesterday with a company that I gone in, and they asked me the exact same thing. The marketing manager comes to me and goes, I have a problem. My teams, they are not on board the brand. are not on board delivering the brand out there to the world. So there could be many factors, right? So number one, it could be a problem with the manager. Number two, you're right. It could be the problem that, when I talked about the story about service with the smile, the marketing message, it could be that the message doesn't resonate with them. Or number three, it could be that they have not been involved in the process of creating this message and they have not been trained or told on how to do this effectively. So it could be any of these three reasons.
Okay, that's interesting. And what about, other teams? How can a marketing leader go beyond their marketing teams and reach other functions in the business to make sure they believe in the messaging as well?
The few ways that I've talked about, right? So number one is having an internal marketing. I mean, if you're a marketing team, you know marketing. And it's about internal marketing within the organization. I'll give you an example about one of my clients, BASF. When we were rolling out their brand, this is one of the things that we did. We got a robot, like a guy-dressed robot with all the key brand messages, kind of like plugged into his costume. And he went to all the different offices in Asia and we played with them, right? So we go to the robot asks you a question, you provide the right answer, poof, you get a prize. So it was a great campaign. We also had a game show concept. We went around with the different offices. So it's about doing a lot of internal marketing. That's one. Number one, and I heard, is there a noise?
Yeah, I think maybe that might be, is it your 1 a.m. alarm in case you need to get up and do another session? No, I think it's good. I think it's gone.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's gone. Okay.
Don't worry. No, don't. Just making sure you're still awake, I think.
Yeah. So number one, it is going to be the marketing messages. And of course, you could also do a whole, the stories and getting leadership involved and getting buy-in from the top and getting buy-in to, getting top leadership to also influence, right? And finally, it could be the brand champions that I talk about. Getting your brand champions to go out there and influence. That's key.
Okay, great. And I think a lot of our delegation will be wondering this themselves. They'll be thinking, okay, this sounds absolutely brilliant. We need to do something like this. However, and the elephant in the room is, obviously, the last 16 months or so has totally changed not only the way we work, but the way we engage with our teams, the way we communicate, the way we all get together. How are you finding, is there any best practice advice you can give in a remote or hybrid working environment and how we can make sure we are consistent and we do have champions? Is there anything you can recommend?
Well, I mean, an easy way to do this, right? Of course, even in a lot of my work over the past 2 years now with COVID, not 2 years, 1.5 years, since March last year, has moved to the online world. So we are still doing everything that we talked about, that I talked to you about, right? We are still doing, we do training programs, we help the marketing, internal marketing to go out. So it's all done. It's just that it's done remotely. So it should happen. Being virtual is not an excuse for internal brand building to stop. I mean, you wouldn't stop marketing to your customers with COVID, isn't it? So you still need to do it. It's just that the forms it takes, the channels it takes will all be very different and packaged accordingly to the environment that it's in.
Okay, yeah, of course. And alongside these kind of changed working environments and these different remote landscapes, we've got our employee expectations, of course, and we've also got changed customer expectations. Which changed expectations do you think are really here for the long term? And how can marketing leaders and brand owners and businesses globally adapt to fulfill these more permanent changes or even make sure that they're ahead of the curve with the growth of their brand?
It's research. I mean, I do this for, with my consulting firm. We have clients that we have built plans, brand roadmaps and plans, strategic plans. And in 2020, we tore all them up. And we had to reinvent the wheel because the world is changing. And that's something that we need to realize, right? I mean, what COVID has taught us, what's happening in the world, is the need to change to be relevant to the changing landscape is key. So yes, if things are going and things are, as the world is changing, if you have a strategic plan in place, and if you think it's not relevant in this current place, current time, change it, evolve it, right? Make sure it's relevant. And I do that really by doing a few things. Number one is researching. I talked about it a little bit earlier in my keynote. Research, ask your employees, ask your customers, look at market trends, look at what's happening in your industries, and use that information and close gaps and look at opportunities based on that information.
Okay, yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Thank you. And another topic that we've talked about quite a lot over the summit so far is this idea of data and analytics. How can we turn those into relevant insights? And admittedly, we've talked about those mostly to do with the consumer over the last day and a half. But I think it is important that we talk about data from our employees, because really,
Absolutely.
in order to harness this internal growth mindset, we need to understand the data. So what data can we use to understand this internal growth mindset, and how do we get that?
So it's very easy, right? I mean, the framework that I've given to you, I mean, it's a really powerful framework. The clarity piece, it's very simple. You ask them if they understand the brand. So you can measure understanding. Belief, you can measure belief. To what level do they believe in the brand? So that's the connection piece. Number 3, we could talk about how they apply it across touch points, right? So the touch point could be their meetings or to their customers, and that's the consistency piece that you can check. And number 4, advocacy, loyalty, right? These are metrics of a brand champion. You can also test some of these questions. So just using the 4 C's in itself would already give you a framework of a simple questionnaire, right? Or a simple survey, or a simple snapshot landscape that you can look at, or what's happening in your organization. But there's more. And I highly recommend, it's so important that you speak to your people, because anything that you put out there into the world, you got to get buy-in from inside your organization. It has to be relevant. If your people are expected to deliver on that, they have to be involved in the process.
Okay, yeah, no, I think that makes sense. And like you say, it's crucial that we do use those 4 pillars to obtain the data so we can also grow for the future, isn't it? Rather than just work out what's good now, we need to work out how we can change as brands with our internal messaging for years to come. So
Exactly.
on that note, I suppose our delegation is full of marketing leaders. And the one question everybody has on their lips is, what is the future of CMOs? What can we expect? How do you see the role of CMO evolving over the next 5, 10 years?
Actually, I mean, it's interesting you asked that, because I'm actually in the midst of writing an article about the changing role of the CMO. And as I'm researching this, and I'm asking CMOs this question, how they see their roles change. One thing has come up very often, and it's the role of internal branding. Today, I believe CMOs need to consider what's happening inside the organization as a driver for what's happening outside. And what COVID has really also taught us and reinforced is people are feeling it, right? They're feeling the pressures of being at home or being in remote environments. Without your people, it is very difficult to drive the future. So I believe the role of the CMO, a big part of it will evolve into the people aspect of branding, the people aspect of marketing inside your organization. And I believe that's the future, in my opinion.
Yeah, great. So it goes back to that people buy from people point that you mentioned earlier. When you asked our audience, Jerome, about the challenges that they're currently facing, we actually got a couple of messages in the chat, and I wanted to bring one up to you because I'm interested to hear maybe if you have any advice. So one of the challenges mentioned where somebody put that they're a marketing leader for an organization that has had a recent merger of several brands with different values, perhaps conflicting, as I'm sure they often are. Do you have any advice in how to really harness and cultivate this growth mindset internally in that particular circumstance?
Yeah, I could go on speaking an hours on this. One of my big clients is, so I'm just thinking of my NDA.
Of course.
So
no names mentioned.
I have a big client, a big global client who acquired, so they're a tech giant based out of US, but they're big in Asia. They acquired a smaller tech firm, and I had to go in, and my job was to do this, and I had to work with this new company that was acquired, and it was challenging, right? Because with the acquisition, you will always have challenges, because especially when I realized what the culture of the tech giant, the culture of this smaller tech firm was absolutely different. So a big part of it goes back to you having a campaign to cultivate and to bring these people on board your brand. So of course, I mean, if you have been merged, I mean, you come under the umbrella of this brand, but then you need to ensure that you build this, right? And you do that through, if you remember one of the slides I talked about, right, where you have stories and you bring in the rituals and you have internal communication, internal marketing, you even judge performance on how well they deliver the brand. So you bring all that in, you recognize and you reward. It's going to take time. It is going to take time, but it can happen. I've done it. I've done it for multiple organizations who have gone through merger. Is it hard? Yes. Can it be done? Yes.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Jerome, for that advice. We had another comment in our chat, actually, and a delegate has said that they agree that people buy from people, but people also buy from people who look like them, which is really why businesses and brands need everyone involved instead of just a select group to make sure that obviously you're targeting that diverse demographic. Do you agree with that statement?
Absolutely. I mean, look, every industry is going to be different. But I agree that people buy from people, and the more common the characteristics. So for example, if I'm posting something in the Asian marketplace and as an Asian thought leader, boom, people are going to follow me and listen to me because of the fact that I'm known in this market. If I do something in North America, they're going to go, who is this Indian guy from Singapore? So yes, right? So the level of influence is a factor. The level of relevance is a factor. The commonality of the or what you call the credibility of the message of the person is a factor. So all these factors play a role in it, of course.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And final question from me, Jerome. What should every single member of our audience do when the summit is finished this week, going back to their offices? What should the very first thing they do be that can help cultivate and nurture this internal growth mindset? One practical thing.
Ask yourself this question. If from my receptionist to my CEO, right, if they do not understand or believe in my brand, how do we expect our customers to do so? And that's the key thing that I want you to take away from this. From your receptionist, your CEO, if they don't understand, believe, or deliver the brand consistently or champion the brand, how do you expect your customers to do so? And that's the key message that I want to leave you with.
Perfect note to end on. Dr. Jerome Joseph, thank you so much. I know obviously our delegation can get in touch via the various channels, as you've mentioned, and they'll get all of the information in their post-summit insights documents. But thank you for joining us. Please go and have some sleep now. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.